Hi, everybody. This is Venkat from Simply Coach, and you're listening to the Growth Dialogues podcast, the show that brings together experts in coaching, therapy, and consulting from around the world. Hello, and welcome to the latest issue of our Growth Dialogues. And I'm very happy to have a very experienced coach, Pamela, on the call. Thanks for joining, Pamela.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, we have spoken with many coaches on these podcasts earlier. This one is very, very interesting. And Pamela is a pickleball team builder. But more importantly, today's conversation, she's also a master, an expert in the art of conflict resolution. And this is something that all of us go through in our corporate lives. We sort of know how it is, but we aren't always equipped to handle it. And Pamela has been a path breaker in terms of solving this very creatively and ensuring finally harmonious outcomes in organization. So thanks for that joining us on the call, Pamela. Maybe you could start with, I mean, you are a leadership coach. How
hmm
did you get into this niche of conflict resolution, conflict management? Was this by choice or was there a client? How did this happen?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Venkat. It's funny because I just fell into every single piece that I'm in. And it seemed like whenever I was in an organization or anything, and I'm an envelope pusher, so I would be the one who is like, well, what about this? And why aren't we doing this? And blah, 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 So I started the conflicts a lot of times and realized that I wasn't getting along with people if I did that. So I had to find another way to bring up what I thought needed to be brought up
Mhm.
in a gentler, kinder, more acceptable way, and yet still challenge people. So after a while, and my background was in law enforcement, so I have that, I'm not afraid to just say, "Hey, what's going on? Why are we doing this?" At the same time, I had a lot of people say, "Gee, you're just so good at you just bring people together. You make them listen to each other. You hear what's really being said." And I thought, "Oh, so somebody told me I had that skill. I didn't know I had it." So that's where I started. And from
Wow.
that point forward, it just sort of blossomed.
Okay. So when we talk about team conflict, I often hear people say there is always one or more root causes which cause it. It can go back in time, it can be team dynamics. Help us understand how do you uncover this root cause and what is the method for doing that?
Oh, okay. So let me just talk about root cause. To me, it's always low emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can't handle our emotions, then we're just going to push our agenda and we're never going to stop. So the more we sort of understand who we are and how we feel about things, the better we communicate about them. So, and I'll just say there's lots of red flag behaviors, like people who have difficulty in identifying, understanding, or managing their own emotions. They're unaware of what's going on with themselves and how
Mm-hmm.
they feel. They can't show empathy. Their social skills are not as high. They have difficulty in accepting constructive feedback. They blame others. They manifest a big victim behavior. They feel picked on, misunderstood. It's not my
Mm-hmm.
fault. Someone else did this to me. I mean, I can go on. I literally can go on. They're bitter, they're angry, they're unforgiving. They have unpredictable behavior. They are a consummate rescuer. They're critical, defensive. I mean, all of those are encompassed in the low emotional intelligence. They hold grudges. You always, you never. I did this because of you. They struggle with relationships often. That root cause is from traumatic events, and so they're just easily triggered. So I'm seeing that 90% of it is just misunderstandings. They think they heard what they heard, and it's really not what the other person meant, or it was what they said, but it wasn't said in a way that they could accept it. So then we just have two triggered people,
Hmm.
or three, or an entire group, or an entire company.
Yeah. So when this happens in a group setting, is it just one person who impacts, or is there so many people who are there? There are multiple. I mean, it just seems like a ball of wool where there are so many
You're
angles to look
right.
at, right?
I like the way you said that. So let's just unravel that ball of wool. It's often sometimes it's one person because you have to have a fuel starter, you have to have a fire starter.
Mm-hmm.
So someone is unhappy and they gossip with someone else, so that's another sign of low emotional intelligence. And I'm not saying that they're stupid people. I'm just saying people don't know have their emotions in check because they've never really had to, or they don't know how. So it's more low skilled in that, maybe just in one area. They can be the smartest person in the world. If they can't communicate how they feel or what's going on, then their emotional intelligence is what we're talking about, not their IQ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really interesting because it often starts with a fire starter, someone who triggers it. At the same time, it can be an entire company of people who are feeling this way, and someone finally just brought it to a head. And now we've got people who are starting to talk to each other. They can be now because we're so remote, they still talk. They could be on Teams or some other, or Slack or some other program, and they're you're just sensing a snippy response, and that's where it starts.
And as a coach who goes into this situation, who calls you? Does the manager call you? Does the HR call you? How do you sort of enter the scene in this conflict?
I love it. Venkat, when I first started, I was always, I was just the employee. I hate my boss. I hate my company. I hate this. This isn't working for me. The problem with that is that bosses aren't going to hire me because somebody hates them. So even though that is where I used to hear it, I now realize that the people I have to talk to are the owners, the HR directors, the people who are in charge. And when I do speak with them, if they when they call me, they're usually on their last leg.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be in law enforcement and I managed a program called Neighborhood Watch, which means you watch over your neighbors. Well, people only do that when they've been burglarized, or, someone's uh, devastated their property, or they've got drug houses on their block. That's when they call the police,
Mm-hmm.
not when something is starting to brew, but it hasn't erupted yet. And that's usually when someone contacts me, is when it's already erupted and they are over their skis. They're in trouble. So it's unfortunate because the signs are always there, and it's way less expensive if you bring somebody in when it first starts than when we've got a full-fledged war on our hands. And anyway, so that's kind of how that usually happens.
So, could you give us an example of where you entered the scene, you saw this conflict, and give us some flesh to that? How long did it take to solve it? How was it recognized by the individual involved,
Yeah.
the leadership team?
You know, how long does it take?
Mm-hmm.
Usually it takes years for a problem to really fester.
Yeah.
And so it does not, especially especially if it's a bigger company, it just takes a while for it to run through the system. It's not like our bloodstream where
Mm-hmm.
your heart pumps and everything goes through it in a matter of a minute or two. It's months and usually years. So then repairing that damage is depending on how willing people are to recognize maybe their role in it and how to fix it. And that is probably the biggest secret that I carry,
Mm-hmm.
is helping people recognize it in a place that they want to fix it instead of get mad and quit. or leave or fire people. I've had one guy, he fired his entire company twice because he didn't recognize his own lack of emotional intelligence. So it's really it's all over the place. However, the longer it's been festering, the longer it takes to repair. And usually I don't work with people less than 6 months, and often it's a year or two just to get everything back on track, copacetic, and get people learning the same how to be nice in a situation because it's repeated. It's just like, children, and we tell them, okay, you need to put your napkin in your lap. This is really old school, but when you sit down at a table with other people. Well, we are teaching our children still at age 12. Don't forget to put your napkin in your lap. So it takes a while for people who are in this to really recognize it and master the tools and the skills.
Yeah. So, one of the things I've seen in my corporate experience is there are people who behave like this in a group,
Hmm.
but you put them in a different setting or in a different group, or sometimes in their own personal lives. They seem to be absolutely okay and normal.
Right.
So, how
Oh,
does
you
that?
brought it up. You brought it up. You're so good. Often it's an event that triggered them. So let's just say that you were applying for a position and you got passed over by someone else that you did not think should have had that job
Mm-hmm.
for one reason or another. And as soon as that happened, your happy go lucky, amazing attitude that you've always had, now you've got a chip on your shoulder and you're not happy. And pretty soon things get worse. If you get the promotion, which by then you don't deserve, however, if you get promoted or moved into something else, or someone resolves that issue, then all of a sudden they're back to themselves. We don't hire nasty people. Wouldn't you say that? I mean, when you're looking to hire, are you looking for people with chips on their shoulder?
Yeah. Surely not. Surely not.
So it often happens, something happens in the company, and every single time when I talk to somebody, they'll go, I know when that happened. And then they can tell me the incident from the beginning. Even it can be the person in the conflict or the person that the conflict is against or their manager or their leader. They will say, oh, yeah, that's when they changed. Okay, so let's go back and fix that. If you can go back to where the source was, often we can bring people around, repair it. It's delicate. However, once they're okay, they're like, all right. It's amazing how that can work.
So, the dynamic in which you work is obviously a group setting, one or more individuals, many people impacted. So, how does your method work? Do you talk to people one on one as well as in groups, small groups? How does
Yeah.
it play out in real time in an organizational context?
Well, I usually try to find the instigator, the person who is the most angry, the most upset.
Mm-hmm.
So I interview them. But first I interview the leader. Who brought me in? What do you think the concerns are? What do you think the problem is? Why do you want to keep this person? Because, if they're expendable, if they're thinking we don't need to keep them, then why not just let them go? If you're feeling that that's the way it is. Well, they're usually feeling a little guilty, or maybe they're actually this person is amazing except for in this one area. So if we can sort of get to the bottom of that, I interview people privately so
Mm-hmm.
I can find out where they are, and I want them to trust me. I Probably my biggest secret is being safe, present, neutral, and non-judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
So if all of those pieces are present, Venkat, then all of a sudden I can speak to them, I can hear what they're saying, and then help them shift that paradigm. It's like, so you got passed over. That sounds awful, and I'm really sorry to hear that. Um, what do you think? What do you think the answer is? I mean, I'm just going to put it back on them
Mm-hmm.
because by then they're in a victim space, and that victim, I believe in I work a lot from the drama triangle, which is we have a rescuer, a persecutor, and a victim. So, and all of them are victim roles, no matter what. They're all victim. And the opposite of that is called the TED dynamic. And that one is where I turn the victim into creator. I encourage the rescuer to become a coach and the persecutor to become a challenger.
Mm.
So I'm always saying, if you could fix this, what would you do? I give them the power to become the creator in this situation instead of staying in victim. And if we can shift that, then there's hope.
I like the way you're holding a mirror and those three words stuck: safe, present, and not judgmental, right? I think
Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that resonates, right?
thank
So,
you.
in terms of some of the coaches who are watching and listening on this episode, who are good
Hmm.
leadership coaches, they sense an opportunity, a business opportunity, because there are clients asking them for this. You have a natural advantage. You come from a background in law enforcement, so that's probably helped you a lot.
I don't know. Usually officers will approach somebody and they're bladed. They've got that stance and their hands on their gun, and it's like,
I don't know.
so no, I would never had a weapon in law enforcement. I was crime prevention. So,
So you knew how it works and you could get that world experience. But for some of our other coaches who are looking at this and see, in that sense, a business opportunity because the clients are going through this, how
hmm
can they prepare themselves? Can they train themselves? How do they learn? How do they get into this specialization?
boy, you are asking sweet questions, Venkat. It's I think you have to want to. And there are a lot of coaches who just hate conflicts. Like, I don't
Mm.
want to deal with this. I don't want this. I want to bring people and make them be their best self and help them be that. Unfortunately, it's always entrenched or often entrenched in conflict, personal or with other people. And it is scary because I've had people yell at me and scream and do all kinds of stuff only when I approached it in an incorrect or irreverent manner. So I have learned over the years that I have to be very reverent with people and very respectful. And like I said, be safe and non judgmental. No matter what they're calling somebody, what they're doing, whatever's happening, it's like, tell me more. I want to understand this because I'm just looking for the bottom. I don't care, who it's just fluff on the outside. And if you can see it as fluff, then we get to the heart of the matter. It changes people.
So, uh, I want to ask a question about sort of prevention versus cure, right? So, an
Mhm.
organization where things are going well, but they anticipate some business downturns that may lead to some conflict issues. And
Yes.
so, if there was a CEO watching this show and saying that, hey,
Mhm.
maybe I could get into some trouble with some of my performers, right? What would be your advice and input to them? How can they sort of prevent a conflict from
Right.
sort of bubbling up or festering over time?
I would challenge them to be very good active listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that when you hear somebody talk to you, you listen, you pay attention to them, you paraphrase what you thought you heard them say, and if they say no, that you're fine. Just keep listening, keep paraphrasing until you understand it. And when you really understand them and they feel heard, then they will become more, they'll listen to you. Nobody's going to listen to you if you don't listen to them. So that is probably the biggest key is that no matter how excited you are about what you want to present, you want your people to hear you, which means you have to hear them and make sure you understand really what they see the issues are, because I'm working with several companies right now that want to push an initiative that the people don't understand, and they have what we call a fixed mindset. So this is the way we've always done it. Why do we have to change it? And of course, the company is on a growth trajectory, so they want to change things, they want things to move, and it's very difficult for them to sell their new idea unless they get everyone on board, which means you have to start with them. You don't start with yourself, which you did with me. You started with me. Thank you, Venkat.
This is again going to stick with me. Nobody is going to listen to you until you listen to them.
That's
So
right.
excellent, Pamela. I mean, that's a great way to sort of end this. And one thing I want to share with all our coaches listening in, that this is somebody who has come with very, very deep insight. And I really wanted to
Ah,
thank Pamela for really sharing your time and your expertise with us. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Growth Dialogues. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you enjoy your podcast.